Hello friends, this is a lecture, this lecture is a part of a series we publish as a tribute to Gandhiji on the event of his birth anniversary. So in this lecture, we mainly focus on the contribution of Gandhiji to the Indian national movement and also to the Indian nation at large. What are the contribution of Gandhiji? In order to understand the great contribution made by Gandhiji to the freedom struggle, we must understand how freedom struggle was conducted before Gandhiji entered the freedom struggle in 1915, after he returned to India from South Africa. So before 1915, there were two great national movements were already conducted before 1915. So moderate leaders led the Congress between 1885 to 1905. But they achieved very few results. But their contribution was lasting. But they could not get to the masses of India. They were unable to reach the level of the Indian masses. They were unable to make the masses a part of the freedom struggle. All their language, vocabulary, issues, and the problems they had taken up were mainly belonging to the upper caste, urban, English educated, and mostly the elite sections of the Indian society. So after 1905, extremist national leaders started their own national movement between 1905 to 1917. They were very active in the Indian national movement. They gave a different vocabulary. They changed the aims. They changed the methods of the Indian national movement, but they too were unable to reach the masses. They too were unable to make the masses a part of the national movement. They did not reach the rural areas. Most of the peasants, workers, poor, and Dalits, tribals, and women mostly, they were all out of reach of the extremist national leaders and prior to them, the moderate national leaders. But in the situation when Gandhiji entered India, from 1917, he designed various programs of the Indian national movement in such a way that they would incorporate into their fold the large sections of the Indian society. Either they be peasants, workers, or Dalits, poor, and the people from rural areas, and most importantly, women. That's a great contribution to the Indian national movement provided by Gandhiji. That he spoke in the idiom of the masses. He dressed like them. He spoke like them. He lived like them. He had taken up the causes that were the most important part of their life. That was vexing them to no extent. So that was the great contribution of Mahatma Gandhiji, that he brought these vast section of masses which were hitherto were completely neglected by the previous national leaders, either be moderates or the extremists, and not to mention the revolutionary leaders. That's the first great contribution. The second great contribution of Mahatma Gandhi was that he gave pride of a place for women in the Indian national movement. Let us compare Mahatma Gandhi with other national leaders, other revolutionary leaders of either 19th or 20th century world. Take 20th century world only. Along with Gandhiji, the other great national leaders or revolutionary leaders or fighters were Lenin, Mao, Ho Chi Minh, or Fidel Castro, or Winston Churchill, or Roosevelt. These were all other great national leaders of their own respective nations of the 20th century. But there was no indication that any of these national leaders, either they were socialists or capitalists, Democrats or authoritarians, they did not provide, they did not make space in any way to establish, to encourage the leadership of women in their struggles. But Gandhiji, even during the time of the non-cooperation movement in 1920, and a civil disobedience movement in the 1930, or the Quit India movement in 1940, gave pride of a place for the great women national leaders of India. Take, for example, the role played by Sarojini Naidu. She was also made the first Indian female president of the Congress in the 1920s only. Take the example of Madeline Slade. So who left her life, career and family in England to be a devotee of Gandhiji and to greatly contribute towards the cause of charkha and the abolition of untouchability and village reconstruction. She dedicated her life, leaving her elite life in England as the daughter of an admiral. And take, for example, Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay. So she was inspired by Gandhiji, motivated by Gandhiji's leadership to become a part of the Indian freedom struggle. She took up the cause of the peasant, workers, women, youth, and also the causes of the other colored races in the global struggle against racism, casteism, colonialism, and patriarchy. So that was another example. Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay's leadership was another example of Gandhiji's wide-ranging, broadening idea of the Indian national movement. So these were some of the examples of the future India. And take, for example, the leadership of Rajkumari Amrit Kaur. Take, for example, Miraben. Take, for example, Sarojini Naidu. Take, for example, Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay. When in the rest of the world, the national leaders of the respective nations were either unable or unwilling to provide any scope or any space to the evolution or the encouragement of the women leadership, female leadership, Gandhiji gave equal role to women in India in the Indian national movement. So that is the second great contribution of Gandhiji. And the third great contribution of Gandhiji was his designing of a new struggle to resist oppression and injustice called Satyagraha. Before Satyagraha was invented by Gandhiji, there were only two main methods to oppose injustice, oppression, or foreign rule. People were mainly following the methods of revolutionary violence or terror. Revolutionary violence or methods of terror were practiced by the people to fight oppression, injustice, and foreign rule. But in most cases, it was counterproductive. Violence beget more violence, and violent methods of struggle first devoured the sons of revolution itself. So, take for example the French Revolution only. French Revolution started as a struggle against oppression, and the leadership of French Revolution themselves caused oppression against their own people. Take for example Russian Revolution, take for example Chinese Revolution, take for example Vietnamese Revolution, take for example Cuban Revolution. Every revolution devoured its own children. Every revolution caused its own oppression. So that was counterproductive. Another negative aspect of revolutionary methods of violence practiced against oppression, injustice, and foreign rule was that majority of the members of society could not become a part of this struggle. This struggle would only be confined to the level of the elites, educated, and able-bodied or strong-bodied. And a majority section of women, peasants, poor, Dalits, they could not become a part of the struggle. So the resultant state would be completely neglecting the interest of the rest of the section of society who did not participate in the struggle. That was great demerit or negative aspect of the revolutionary struggles of freedom. And another aspect of the struggle against oppression and violence was that of passivity. Passivity means ignoring, neglecting, or completely being indifferent towards injustice or oppression, exploitation, foreign rule. So that could not give any substantial results as well. So either apathy, that means indifference on one side, or mad, irrational, violent, revolutionary methods of terror on the other side. But Gandhiji believed that these two methods were disastrous. Apathy, indifference would only increase violence, oppression, and injustice, and revolutionary methods of terror or violence or other such methods would only be counterproductive and further practice violence against its own people. So Gandhiji contributed greatly towards not only the Indian national movement, but also he gave a new tool for every person in the world who was conscious to reform their own society. That means Satyagraha. Satyagraha means trying to change the heart and mind of the oppressor, so that he would desist from practicing violence, not only as long as force was put against him, but permanently. Satyagraha would bring permanent change in the mind of the oppressor. Revolutionary methods of terror would only bring a change in the mind of the oppressor as long as there was a force ready to be used against him. So, Gandhi's great contribution towards the Indian national movement, and also any movement to reform and fight against oppression, injustice and exploitation in the world was a satyagraha to permanently bring change in society by changing the heart and mind of the oppressor. So that's another great contribution of Gandhiji. And Gandhiji also defined Swaraj in a very multifaceted, in a plural manner. For Gandhiji, only mere political independence from the British would not be of any use at all. Independence without empowering the individual. Independence without abolition of untouchability. Independence without bringing unity and a purpose in the lives of the Hindus and Muslim community in India. Independence without the poor in the rural areas having control over their own lives would be completely meaningless. So Gandhiji enhanced the scope of Swaraj in such a way that it would bring necessary change in society to give complete control over to everybody over their own lives. That's another great contribution of Gandhiji. And next one, another great contribution of Gandhiji was he's a critic of modern Western civilization. Gandhiji was a great critic of modern Western civilization. In 1909 itself, when he was just 40 years of old, Gandhiji wrote the single book that he published in his own life. Gandhiji wrote only one book in his entire life, and other books that were published in the name of Gandhiji were a compilation of different writings he made to different newspapers, including his own. But Gandhiji wrote only one and the only single book that he published called Hind Swaraj, or Indian Home Rule. Gandhiji wrote this book when he was still fighting for the rights of Indians in South Africa in 1909. The main purpose of this book was to provide a critique of the modern Western civilization. Gandhiji believed that the modern civilization was based on the machine, and this machine would not be a suitable force to bring changes in Indian society, because this would create more displacement, more destruction than the construction it would cause. So, machine would create enormous unemployment problem in our country, and that would also bring violence with it, because the machine which would bring unemployment in large number would create massive economic inequalities, and these economic inequalities would further intensify the already very serious problem of social inequality and hierarchy and oppression in our country. So modern civilization should not be blindly aped, according to Gandhiji. Because West had its own civilization, but India had built our own civilization according to the genius, according to the needs and requirements of our own country. Modern civilization only made man more greedy and more cavernous and more exploitative of nature. Modern civilization, according to Gandhiji, was not only exploitative but also destructive, not only of the man but also of the nature. So modern civilization created the problem of environmental destruction. Modern civilization caused the problem of oppression of one rich community over the rest of the society. Modern civilization created the problem of exploitation of one race against by the other races. So Gandhiji believed that in order to create a peaceful society, in order to create a harmonious society, man should control the machine and machine should not control man. Because a machine was only furthering the material interest of the man by completely sacrificing his spiritual growth, and man or woman or anyone, so they completely forgetting that there is a spiritual aspect to life and they are only completely engrossed and they are completely subverted by the material aspects of life. So Gandhiji believed that these blind imitation of the West and its modern material civilization should be reined in, should be controlled, should be restricted. So, but Gandhiji was not blind in his opposition towards the machine. Gandhiji believed that machine should only empower the individual. Machine should only further enhance the capabilities and skills of the individual and not displace him completely from his work. Should not alienate the individual from society. Should not alienate individual from nature. So in his critique, which he wrote when he was just 40 years of age, Gandhiji had provided a much mature critique and a much mature understanding of the modern civilization or capitalism than Marx could ever do. So that's another great contribution of Gandhiji. And last one, another great contribution of Gandhiji was that the testament to the contribution was that Gandhiji's experiment in peace and non-violent methods to oppose injustice, exploitation and oppression in the Indian national movement were further studied in a very serious manner by the Americans, by the Europeans and other third world countries. The best example for that is the civil rights movement, which was conducted by the black leaders of southern states of America between 1955 to 1965, mainly under the leadership of Martin Luther King. So the African American population, the blacks of the southern states of America were suffering from many social disabilities which were having legal sanction in America. So even though the blacks were liberated in 1863 only by Emancipation Proclamation of the greatest American president Lincoln, the white society in the southern states of America did not yet recognize that blacks should also be treated in a same way in society. There were many social restrictions, discrimination practiced against the blacks. In total, these laws were called Jim Crow laws. And the leaders like Martin Luther King and SAACP. So these organizations and Martin Luther King believed that in order to fight against very unfair discriminatory treatment faced by the blacks in the southern states of America, Gandhiji provided very great and very effective tools of opposition to injustice. So this Satyagraha method was followed by Martin Luther King and it was successful, and Martin Luther King was also awarded the prestigious Nobel Peace Prize. And take for example in Myanmar. So in Myanmar also Aung San Suu Kyi fought against the military dictatorship in her own country for more than 2 decades. And she also followed the leadership and the guidance provided by Gandhiji. And this method of struggle was also followed by Nelson Mandela in South Africa. And also many African national leaders, in order to achieve their independence, also followed the Gandhian methods of Satyagraha. So in India also, many social activists in our country followed Gandhian leadership, like Medha Patkar or Yella Bhatt, or many such great national leaders followed the leadership of Gandhiji in order to solve many of the social problems without depending on the state to reform society. So these are the great contributions made by Gandhiji when he was alive and also after his death. And Gandhiji's voice will remain permanent as long as wars end and as long as society is oppressed by one section, there is oppression in society by one section on the others. So these are some of the great contributions that Gandhiji made, not only to India and the Indian national movement, and also to common humanity of the world. Thank you very much.